Okay, so let's begin. All right, so yesterday and the day before, we read about the halach of Machshavah Lab, and we saw the Aruch HaShulchan, well, the Ramah's statement that this is really incumbent on the Gabbai, but then the Aruch HaShulchan's clarification that this is really dependent on the group effort. It's dependent on whoever can do this. So if you're the only Ashir in town, or you're the only one who's going to give money, and some poor person comes to you and has needs, it falls upon you to supply his needs. But if you're in a community where there are other Ashirim, so then you can bring it to their attention, and then all of you together can participate in sustaining this poor person. Okay, fine. So that was yesterday. Okay, so now we get to this little case, which is, I think, a continuation of the previous one. I don't know why he puts it in a separate paragraph. Yasom sheba lahasio isha, sokrin lo bias umatziin lo mita v'chol klei tashmishov achkach masiin lo isha. So an orphan who comes to get married. When he says an orphan, a male orphan who comes to get married to a woman, I assume that this also applies to a female orphaness who gets married to a male. I don't know, he did specify earlier, for helping people get married. In the
typically the expenses would be on for the guy.
That is probably true. Yeah, that is true. Right. But in other words, I just want to clarify though that if she needs to get married, then you help her get married also. You just don't play out this whole thing. So you rent him a house and matino mita, and you arrange for a bed for him and all his furnishings, and then you marry him off. So before we talk about the particulars of the halacha, does anyone know or remember the halachic definition of orphan? Isaac, you were here when we did this in Deos, but I don't know.
I think I remember that it's someone who has lost a parent.
Okay, good. And until what point are they considered an orphan?
I actually don't know.
Okay. Anyone? Yeah.
Can I guess marriage?
Good guess. You might guess that based on this, but nope. So let's look at the halacha again in Hilchos Deos 6:10, fifth paragraph. So this is in the halachas about orphans. We're not going to reread all of them, but just he defines it midway through the halacha. Echad yosom me'av, echad yosom me'ein. Whether an orphan from father or orphan from his mother. So you lose one parent, you're considered an orphan. Until what point is a person considered an orphan regarding this? Okay, because obviously you're considered an orphan, in other senses, but regarding the isser to afflict an orphan, or all these halachas about treating them preferentially. Until they no longer need an adult to provide to be supported by. Okay, Makbili says to depend upon and to be helped by, and then la'amnan to raise them. That's legadal osam, and lehitapel lehisasik to be involved with them. Rather, he does all of his needs for himself by himself, like other gedolim. So what's interesting about this is, I guess in the olden days when people got married, or at least people sometimes got married at a much younger age. This is probably more common, this halacha about the orphan who's coming to get married. But if you have let's say a 25-year-old who lost a parent, but who is able to take care of himself, then this halakha would not be relevant. Okay. Now, just one more thing that Makbili refers us to, which I'm just going to look at it inside. In Perek Hey Halacha Yud in Deos, was it Hey Yud? Let's see. He says, so this is in the Perek in Deos about the sexual conduct of Talmidei Chachamim. He says, Hey Yud Aleph. He says, Derech Balei Dea. Okay, so it is the way of knowledgeable people, okay, people who use their minds, I guess. Sheyikbelo adam malacha hamafarneses First, you get a job that you can have a livelihood from. The achar kach yikne beis dira, and then you get a house. The achar yisa isha, and then you get married. Okay, shnemar miha ish asher nata keren v'lo chilalo asher bana bayis chadash asher eras isha. That's alluded to in the psukim about the going to war, where it says, "Who is the man who has planted a vineyard and not inaugurated it?" That's referring to getting a livelihood. Then asher bana bayis chadash, that's getting a house, and then eras isha. And then marrying a woman. But the fools, first they get married. If they are able to get a house, they get a house. And then afterwards, at the end of their days, he says the end of their days, they go and they look for a livelihood, or they get depend upon tzedakah. And this is reflected in the curses. Isha te'ares Bias timneh kerem tita. It goes in the reverse order. Is he marries a woman, then he gets a house, and then he plants a vineyard. Klomar yihiu ma'asecha hafuchim. The actions are reversed. Kadei shelo tatzliach terachacha. That's going to make you not succeed. Uva bracha mahu omer. What does it say in the bracha? Vayhi David l'chol derachav maskil v'Hashem imo. Or not in the bracha. In bracha it says David was intelligent in all of his ways, and Hashem was with him. Okay, so that's just a little bit of Rambam advice for the order in which to do career, house, and marriage. Okay, yeah, that was a side point, but that is why we do it in this order, right? Is we get him a house, and I guess we're not getting him a livelihood because he's by definition not able to take care of himself. So the question is, I guess, why are we marrying him off if he can't take care of himself? That's interesting. I guess if he wants to, right? Isha, right? I mean, I guess even though the Rambam is describing what the rational order is to do, like if this guy wants to get married at a young age, that's a need of his, and tzedakah demands that we help him, I guess. Let's see if Rambam said, no, he just quotes the halachic, I said. Okay, so that was the orphan. Any questions on that? Okay, next, this we're probably just going to go over the facts today and have to go into it more tomorrow. Okay, Baha'ani. So we talked about what you give them. You give them what their needs are. Okay, Baha'ani. If an ani came, the shal de machsoro, and he asks for what he needs, ve'ein yad hanosim masagas, and the giver does not have enough to give. So what does he do? Nosein lo kafi hasagas yado. He gives him according to what he has the ability to do. Okay, so what does that mean? V'kama, how much? Ad chamish nechasav, up to a fifth of your possessions, mitzvah min muchar. Okay, and that possessions I assume means net worth. Okay, not just like your physical objects. Like you don't cut your couch into a fifth and then give him the So that's the ideal mitzvah. The echad me'asara b'nechasav benoni, 1/10 of your possessions of your net worth is a middle amount. Pachas mikan ayin ra'ah, less than 1/10 of your amount is stingy. Okay, ayin ra'ah means stingy. And then he says, "Ulam al yimna adam atzma mishlishis hashakal b'shana." A person should never refrain from giving less than a third of a shekel each year. And if you give less than that per year, lo kiyam mitzvah, then he has not fulfilled the mitzvah of tzedakah. So that's the bare minimum share. And even an ani who is supported by tzedakah is obligated to give tzedakah to another person. Yes.
How? Wait, because if this is a mitzvah to do when ani asks, what just some ani, what if we were a place where they're doing Aniyim?
That's a good question. Okay, yeah, that is a good question. That I don't know if we can answer from here. Yeah, opposite. Yeah.
What was that question?
Let's say that you would.
Let's say
you just want to do things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like crazy. How is that viable? Even if you get paid back for giving tzedakah or whatever. If you live in a place, in New York, maybe there's a lot of Aniyim in some places. If you give 1/10 to every ani, you're gonna.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So okay. All right. So the question is like this. All right. So I think we have to answer Akiva's question first, which is Yosef's question was. Yeah. Right. So the Yosef was asking. Just repeat your question again.
Isn't the mitzvah to do it when an ani asks?
Oh yeah. Isn't the mitzvah to do it when an ani asks? And here the Rambam is talking in terms of the year, right? So we're going to have to go into that, and the Aruch HaShulchan gets into that. Akiva's question though is when he says 1/10, right? Does that mean that an ani comes and asks, for his needs. You pull out your Chase app or whatever. You give a tenth of your net worth. So let's say you're worth let's say all you have in your bank account is worth $1,000, right? So you give him $100, right? Now the next ani comes, you give him 90, and then the next ani comes, and like, is that how you're supposed to do it, or are you like calculating how much you earn in the year and then doing a tenth of that? Like he's not very specific here, right? I mean, this is what we have to work out. Okay, so let's first start off with the makbili. Okay, and then again, we're gonna have to go into the halacha separately. So mitzvah min mufchar, the best mitzvah. Zo mitzvah she'ein ba chashash tosefes v'lo giran. So here he's defining what the definition is of mitzvah min mufchar. The choicest mitzvah is a mitzvah that there's no worry of addition or subtraction. What does that mean? So okay, so that's from Shaila and Tshuva. So what can you infer from that? Apparently, this is from the Rambam himself, right? That mitzvah min mufchar is there's no worry. Perfect, yeah. So in other words, this is news to me, okay? That there's like, I think of mitzvah min mufchar as like the best mitzvah, like you're maxing out the way you're doing the mitzvah. He's saying mitzvah min mufchar is the perfect mitzvah, where apparently if you were to give more, right, then that would be like, yeah, exactly. Like then you're down, like you'd be doing like, it would be considered an imperfection if you went beyond that. Okay, that's a subtle distinction, right? So for example, let's say like, just to use an example, which is not mitzvah min mufchar, I don't think he uses this term, but like people are familiar with Hanukkah candles, right? So there's the basic mitzvah, which is one, I know we're a little early for talking about Hanukkah, but doing one candle per night. Second one is you do candles corresponding to the people in the house. And then third is you do ascending order, right? From 1 to 8. So I think that's how we think of mitzvah min mufchar. Or at least that's how I think of it, is like there's 3 levels and this is the best level. Here he's saying this is the perfect perfect level where like if you go less or more, then you're imperfect. Yeah, Yosef?
Soon after, I think it was on Zakana, you can't give more than a fifth.
Correct. And he doesn't mention that, but at least he doesn't mention that here. But I am familiar with that because do you know why they made the takana?
Because certain people were just impoverishing themselves.
Yeah, people would give too much, and then they would impoverish themselves. Yeah, and then they would become dependent on tzedakah. Right, that gets into right. Unless you say what Yosef said. Well, okay, you still have to answer Akiva's question with this, because if you're cutting it in fifth every time, then that's going to run into this problem. But yeah, that's why there's again, I don't think the Rambam says this, but I remember reading in the Hilchos that that the one time you're allowed to give more than a fifth. Anyone know? That's a good question. We'll probably have to look at that. I mean, that you're definitely allowed to do, but when you said that, I was thinking like redeeming captives, but yeah, is on your deathbed, which is interesting. Yeah, you could do like a deathbed, one-time gift or whatever. Okay, I do want to actually, not today, but tomorrow, maybe look up the context in which the Rambam says this. But then Makbili goes on, Uvmakom acher madrif osanu rabbeinu, in another place, which is in Arachim וחרמים, which I've never learned. Okay, Ches Yud Gimel, he says, Kol hamafazer mamona b'mitzvos, anyone who scatters his money in mitzvos, lo yifazer yos mechomesh. Oh, I have read this halacha. Should not scatter more than a fifth of his value. V'yihye kamosha tzivu neviim mechalchel devar b'mishpat. It should be like the neviim say, that he sustains his affairs in a proper measure. Bein b'divrei olam, bein b'divrei Torah. Okay, whether in worldly matters or Torah matters, meaning you should not, even when you're being excessive, you should not be unrestrictedly excessive. Meaning you should, excessive in matters of money means going beyond the medium to like generous, but not to the point where it's like reckless. Okay. Shlishi hashekel. So he says, Mishkal hashekel shel chachamim, the weight of a shekel of the sages, 2 dinar, who 8.5 grams. Ushlisha shekel, who 2.8 gram. Okay, so 2.8 grams of what? Silver? I assume silver, right?
Silver.
Yeah. Okay. So so he has an appendix that says the breakdowns. So what would, I don't know if we can do this, like just look at the value of silver, but let's just see what happens. Okay. Yeah, it changes. Let's look at it today. Value of 2.8 grams of silver. Oh wait, so we. Oh no, wait, sorry. Silver gram price calculator. 2.8, right? $1.77. Okay, so if we're taking this like straight up calculation, so that would be $1.77 per year is the minimum number you can give in order to fulfill the mitzvah of tzedakah. Okay, and then the last point he said is even an ani who is dependent on tzedakah is obligated to give tzedakah to another. To someone who is lower than him. Oh, this is from the Sefer Mitzvos. Or to give to someone who is equal to him, even a small amount, but not less than 2.8 grams of silver per year. Yeah. Okay. So what we have to do for tomorrow is answer Akiva's question, which is how do these proportions work? Do you like take a snapshot of your wealth to calculate the proportion for a certain time period and then like dish out from that time period, or is it just a tenth, which seems unreasonable, you know? And then we have to see what is the connection. And then Yosef's question, which is what's the connection between when he comes to ask you versus this shiur of once per year? Like, where does that come in? Rambam just kind of like springs that on us. Yeah. Okay. Let's stop for today.
Also, simple case.
Thank you.
Have,
You're welcome.
What's it called? They're not Aniyim, but they'll come around in school.
Right? Oh, like shluchim. Yeah.
Right. They'll come good for someone in Israel. Whatever.
Right.
And it'll be like 5 of them.
Right. Yeah. 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 That's a good question. Yep.